A yeshiva, Talmud yeshiva, asked me this week that he was learning in the Orach HaShulchan that the Gemara says that Sar B'isha Ervah, and you're not allowed to, and the Shulchan says you're not allowed to read Krishma, say D'var Shebekedusha, if a woman's hair is uncovered, if she's a married woman. So, he said that he learned in the Orach HaShulchan, he learned in the Orach HaShulchan that din doesn't apply today, and he wanted to know what the Alter Rebbe says about it. It doesn't apply today. And so I figured, let's, in the meantime, it's the beginning of the summer. Let's cover a little bit the sugya anyway. It's not a bad thing to cover right now. The Gemara says in Baruch Hashem of Yitzchak Tefach Bisha Ervah. An uncovered tefach from a woman is an erva. Why? The Gemara says, why is it relevant to know if it's an erva or not an erva? What difference does it make? Thank you. So the Gemara says,
Definition of error.
huh?
What's the definition?
Well, the Gemara is asking, why is it relevant? The definition. The answer is going to be because the pasuk says, "Lo yero v'cho ervas dover v'ho yamachanecha kodesh," and the Chazal learned from that whenever you're doing a D'var Shebekedusha, you're not allowed to have an exposure to an Ervah. So that's the question: is what's considered an Ervah? So
Because the men went war we they just didn't use that lawsuit because the men went to war for a week. What's he use it?
right.
The women are all
Right. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Tefach Bisha Ervah. Lama ilay melistakule ba. If the question was if you to be mistakel on a woman, when they came back from the war of Midian, that the Torah gives a list of takshitim, and one is kumaz. What is a kumaz? A kumaz was a very popular thing in the Middle Ages. The Europeans loved, their favorite pastime was to go on war. So what would they do with their wife when they're going to go away for 2 years on war?
lock her up.
Oh, no, they had a very simple eitzah. That the common practice was to make a hole on both sides of her goof in the hips, to drill a hole through and through. Then they would get this metal keli that they would put on the lower part of the goof. They would put a screw on both sides, and they would lock it. They'd also make a little. Huh?
Keep making this up.
I'm not making it up. You can Google. This is. I'm not making it up.
Okay.
This was a favorite pastime for the Europe.
Take the key. They close with the key.
That was just they close it with the
That was
key,
just the top
Metal.
officer.
and then
That was just the top officers, not the
anyone that wanted to make sure that his wife stays loyal to him.
Right. Yeah.
So and then they would put a lock, and they would also make a little mokum that the tenoifa should be able to go out. Needless to say, that these women, most of them died from infections. Because first of all, they couldn't clean themselves well. Secondly, just as you can imagine, the holes that were made in their hips, and it was not made in the most sterile of circumstances. But you go all over Europe, and they have museums of wars and so on. You'll always see these pieces hanging around. That was Humas. Rashi says that's a b'diuk. If you look in this Rashi over here in this Gemara, that's what Rashi says. So loy melacha kol mistakel be'etzva ktana shalisha kila mistakel b'makam ha'toirev. The Torah counts that they brought karbonos to the mechaper for the Hirur Alayv because they were killing the Midyanim, but the women were also there were women there, and because they were looked at those women, so they wanted to do tshuva for looking at those women. So they brought the jewelry that was taken from Midyan, and the Gemara darshans that pasuk puts together the earrings and the nose rings together with that thing called the kumos, which Rashi says, kan mokem zima, which is the place of zima, to tell you that a person that's even looking at an etspektana chalisha is kilu mestakel b'makom hatoyrif. So, Ebazoi, why are you telling me tefach b'isha erva? It's anyway also to be mestakel, nothing to do with lo yirah b'chayr v'zdova. Huh? Okay. Very good. Zog the Gemara, Elo b'ishte l'krishma. We're talking about a man's wife. Talking to you, a man's wife. So over there, it's mutter to look. Elamai, it's the Shailas is now is reading Krishma and lo yacharo b'cho ervas dava. Amar abchis the shoik b'ish erva. Shneim megal shoik abret hardest sif tegal ervasa v'gam tirach lekvasich. Lam shmol kel b'ish erva shneim kekolach orev v'marich nov. Amar absheish sar b'ish erva shneim seirach ke ederoizim. Let's read the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says, "Va'ata boine tzaveach al pirtzes dereinu v'aveinu seinu rabbi." Shezeh shonim rabbi shenifritzu b'nais Yisrael b'avezev hilchos b'gil roish. V'kol ma shetzok kol ze loy la'ezev v'loy lahoyel va'ata posam misapachas shenesu hilchos basarois k'may psulas. Oyna lanu she'olza b'yameinu kach. So in the country where the Aruch HaShulchan lived, he's saying it in his days already that the married women were going b'gilu roish, they were not covering their hair. And oyna lanu, but miu akapanim ladina nira shemuter lanu l'spal lavarich neged rashem ha'magulas kiven she'ata rubim hoilches kach v'ava k'mekaymes ha'magulim begufa k'mashkosav ha'mordchei b'shem rabra b'sof peri gimel l'brachas v'zel l'shoyne kol advarim she'iskarnu la'erva dafke v'dav she'ene gilas l'golas aval b'sula harigila b'gilu seyor lechashinan the lakehirud. He said that there's a difference with isha nesua, isha besula. If she is nesuya, because ein rigilusly galos, therefore it's an erva. But a besula, an unmarried girl, because the common thing is to have a giluy sayar, so there is no hirud. So he says, oh, if that's the logic, what's a rogel and not what's not rogel? So for that logic and for that price, I could say this is Abahusta Aruch HaShulchan, Akula from the Aruch HaShulchan for those days that people were ready. Rahman al-Islam, the union of covering the hair became shvat. Okay.
You know that's Faradim, over there, said you can go with the shaker. Most
Well, but that we're not talking now about how. What's the method? We're talking about
the hair when you go to the tacha. The shaker make it more nice.
Cover here?
Huh?
Not to cover here?
No, he said that if a woman is not covering her hair, so it's not an erva, and the husband's allowed to say krishma.
Someone else too also?
Huh?
Someone else?
Yeah. Because it's a big kula. Yeah.
Can he turn his back, you know?
Huh?
Most live in Israel.
Huh? There was a Gzeres Lavushim. I don't know if the woman's here was part of it. Tzitz was very makel about it.
Wait, so this is a kula to not cover here? Or
No, it's since he's not saying, he's saying it's a kilo for Krishma. If his wife is not covering the ear, so you're allowed to say Krishma. That's what he says.
Not like she doesn't have it.
No, it's not saying. Okay. Back to the Shaila that we're dealing with. So the Mishnah Brura disagrees with the Aruch HaShulchan. The Mishnah Brura says, "V'da'oid, dafila yim derech ishazu v'charbetea ba'isa makam leilach begili yorosh b'shuk, kederech haprutzes." Even if this woman and all her friends, they in that place, they're going begili yorosh, just like the Aruch HaShulchan said, that they don't cover their hair. Still, when it comes to reading Krishma, it's also to read Krishma when her hair is exposed. Just like if her shoik would be exposed. You can't say that in this country all the women go begilu shoik. And therefore it should be muted. So no, it doesn't help. Even if in a country that all the women are going to go begilu shoik, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a erva. And you're not allowed to say Kedishim in front of a shoik.
Wait a minute, this is why it's not the same show.
I'm reading a Mishnah Brura.
So no, that's the whole issue of the show. Because he was waiting with them to go over with his head to the experts.
The shaila is what was shoik.
Yeah, but right.
I didn't say what the shoik is. I'm just reading word for word and letter for letter.
I was surprised that the Mishnah says that.
No, because
the
Gemara. Okay, no, because it's the definition of shoik. He was making about the definition of shoik.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
There's a big difference. A shoik that everybody, whenever a shoik means, everybody understands that you're not allowed to see. And here, that the surah is empty. So
He says the same thing.
So you don't make. Who knows the difference?
He says it's the same thing. He says just like.
Yeah, but it makes a difference.
Why?
It's the same.
He says it's the same thing.
Everybody also. Here.
He says in a country. He says in a country where all the women go begilu shoik. Yeah, it's still also to read Krishma in front of a shoik of a woman. So what's the difference between the here and the shoik?
Shoik is always also, and the here. The sulas are allowed to go like that, and you're allowed to say, you know, let them see something.
Okay, but he's talking not about basulas. He's talking about nesuyos. He's saying, it's what? Because yeshlam heta, yeshlokim heta. It's like in like in Yeridea. There's,
So it's allowed.
Yeah,
If first of all, I don't believe that the whole should come in here. It has to be healed to say this with healed. So what difference does it make if the woman is married or not married?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. This is what we want to talk about. We'll talk about it in a second. What's the shoik? Given the tzrich lachatzas aside, it's mitzad adin. Because they have to cover the hair. The yesh bezeh isu toira mediksiv para roisha isha maklal shem mechusa. By the way, the reason I picked the shaila today is, first of all, it has to do with the parsha, because it says a Plora Rosh Isha. Second of all, a boy asked me a shaila on Thursday about this Aruch HaShulchan. And the third is, it's the beginning of the summer, so it's a good thing to be mine in the beginning of the summer. But anyway, this week's parsha is the Yesh B'Zeh Isa Tov Neksiv Plora Rosh Isha Michlal Shim Mechusa. V'gam kol B'nai Yisrael Machzikas B'das Moshe Nizodes Mezeh Mimoisa V'Seinu Mo'el V'Adata V'chlal Ervah V'Otz Likas Knegdim V'Loylo B'Lamayet Rag Besulos. The Shulchan Aruch was only memat by pesulas shumatoris leilech bereish parua or even a married woman, and if it's Sarah yoytza chutz le tzamson shezeh tolui b'mineg hamakoymes she mineg. There is a little bit of here which is very hard to cover, and there's machloikes apod Rashba. In this sugya says that which whatever it means like tiny sadas maybe over here. Yeah, that there's little bit of sadas which the Rashba seems to be makel. So there's a machloikes a place if he meant only lagabe Krishma and lagabe his wife, or he meant lagabe bachlal. So machzedek is machmir. Another poskim are makel. And they say that the Tzara Yoitze Chutzla Tzamson is totally b'minag hamokim. It's totally b'minag hamokim.
Sometimes it's ponytail. It's coming here. Tzama, in Hebrew it's tzama.
Ulo yada et milon ha'ivri. Chutzla Tzamson does not mean whatever is milon ha'ivri. Chutzla Tzamson means small hairs, maybe next to the ears or different places, which are very hard to get it covered. Shazet totally b'minag hamakoymes. Im minag b'nais Yisrael b'zeh hamokim lizor shelelotzes afila ma'at men ha'ma'at chutz l'kishorel. Memela b'chal every Ervah ve'osor likris kenegden. V'in lav muter. They keep in the shergilim b'hem like a hirura. So he says that when the only kula would be if it's an unmarried woman or even a married woman, and that's totally if these little hairs, which is totally b'minag hamokim, these little hairs that are poskim that hold is totally b'minag hamokim. So l'chayda, like I said again, so in the truth is even the Mishnah Brura we'll talk about in a second. The Mishnah Brura at the end of this piece writes, I'll get to the Mishnah Brura. That's Mishnah Brura is also the Ma'aseh Machmir, but Midas Chassidus. Okay, just to summarize, simple machlokes. Aruch HaShulchan says that in his time, in his country, in his place, women used to walk without uncovered here. So therefore, that's not called an Ervah. You're allowed to say a D'var Shebekedusha. You're allowed to read Torah. You're allowed to read Krishma. You're allowed to be mispal in front of a woman like that. Her hair is uncovered. And the Mishnah Berurah is machmir. The Mishnah Berurah says no. Just like the shoik, it doesn't matter if everyone in America, all the women in America, are walking the shoik megula. Who cares? The Torah says shoik b'yisherva. The same thing the Torah says sar b'yisherva. Like you have a good kasha, but that's what he has. My kasha is a different kasha. You yourself are saying, yourself, the Mishnah Berurah is saying that if it's a married woman and there's the little ears that are very hard to cover, so it's totally b'minik in the place that they are machmir. So therefore, because it's not rogel to be exposed, so therefore that person's going to be maharet. And a place where all the women have that little bit of hair exposed, so it's mutter, and therefore there is no hirur. So you yourself are saying it depends what's the common thing in town. So what's the difference if it's okay over there? It's mutter mitzadadin, but if you're telling me the thing is totally in hirur, and the RIshon's right when he's the lashon of the Mordechai, the lashon of the Rishonim, he's right. So Taka, there's a beard in the Igris Moshe where he says, it's an interesting. There's a shaila over here. Someone's asking a goyisha woman. If you're on the train, the goyisha women they don't cover their hair, so you're allowed to say D'var Shebekedusha. Let's talk about the here, one thing at a time. We'll get to the other parts in a second. Let's talk about the here right now. And they're married.
So these should feel bad for should feel the time. If either is
You'll get to that. It's a good question. So
married.
If they dedicate, they live in the same house. They live in the same house. So someone writes over here. So he writes back. Yedidi Ahuvi Rebbe Ephraim Grimpla. He says that Rebbe Ephraim wrote to him that if the reason of Sar Bisha Ervah is because Hirur, then even a goyisha woman, even though she's a goyisha woman, is mutter for her to uncover her hair. But if it's hirur, it should be also. So the Moshe asked, I don't understand. And by a Jewish woman, we say besula because it's mutter for her to go with uncovered hair. It's not an erva. So what are you going to say? So he said, you're wrong. He said the time your question would be a good question would be in the days of the Shas. It's mashma that the goyim married women used to cover their hair, just like today in Arab countries. And how do we know that? Because the Gemara says Sanhedrin. How do we know that a woman that's a goy that she's not married anymore? What makes her married and unmarried? Rashi says that the goyish women, when they married, would cover their hair. So once she walks out with an uncovered hair, we know that that's a siman that she's divorced. So he says for those times you could ask the shaila, but for now he says I don't understand. If just like you say, Besula is mutter for her to walk with uncovered hair, and therefore it's not a erva l'gabe krishma. So a non-Jewish woman, it's mutter for her to go with uncovered hair. So why should it be a shaila? But so I want to get to it. But
she's
right.
He says yes.
Okay, and then he brings the question of the machlokes of the RIshon and the Mishnah Berurah, and he says that maybe the svara of the Mishnah Berurah is that loy pluk. The Chacham said since she's mechuyev to cover her ears, so loy pluk, and we'll be machmer, even though there's no hirur. But I don't know. To me, it's a little bit of a lame svara. I think maybe to understand the Mishnah Berurah, a little bit of a balabatish svara. I want to say a little along this also. The first something which is not so much lomdish, but to understand the nature of this sugya is Mishlei. It says in the pasuk in Mishlei talks about the zoina. and she calls out Loivre Dorich, and she says, "Mi pesi yoser heina." She says to the person, the Zoyna says, "Mayim genuvim yimtaku v'lechem sesorim yinom." We know the pshat in the pasuk, the kedusha. The Alter Rebbe, said that he did a trick against Rabbi Avram the Malach, and he used to turn the dials of the clock backwards and tell him we still have time to learn. So he said, "Ma'im genuvim yimtaku." Okay, that's the pshat, the pnimius pshat. But the pshat in Rashi and the Metzudas David, the Metzudas Tzion is that Rashi says, "Ein tam bias penuya ketam eishes ish." That the Zoyna says that, and the Torah is made that the emes is that the bia, a kosher bia, is not so pleasurable as a bia which is aveda. That's what the pasuk says. And further, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, "Ma'u lechem sesarim amri b'yitzchak miyem shechar v'esamikdash nitla tam biyas mitzvah v'nitna lo'over aveda shnemer mayim genuvim yimtaka v'lechem sesarim yinam." The bia is called lechem, kima lechem sheshura oichel. Lechem sesarim biyas aveda shenasas b'seiser. That's sweet. So the bottom line is the pasuk, "Mayim genuvim yimtaka." So I would say like this: the pshat, according to the Mishnah Berurah, pshat in the Mordechai, the RIshon, the pshat in the din is like this. You're the Torah l'soif daita shalodam. You're the Torah l'soif daita shalodam. If for that person, it's also to uncover that chelik in the goof, if it's a shoik or if it's ad, so then that's ma'im genuvim. That's ma'im genuvim. That is ma'im genuvim, and therefore that's goyim hiru, and therefore that makes it an ervah. If it's for that person, it's also to uncover that chelik in their goof. If it's shoik or if it's sa'ar, it doesn't matter. So therefore, it's ma'im genuvim, and therefore you're the Torah l'soif daita shalodam. The Chazal know the nature, and it can't change. It can't change. Just like there was once a story. There was a big to do many years ago about tav l'meis of tandum and l'meis of animal. So they said, no, today it's not true. Women rather live alone than live in not such a good marriage. So there's a famous truma from Rabbi Yoshebes Soloveitchik. He said that there's no such a thing. You're the Torah of Daita Shalom. Chazal said that the nature of a woman is that she rather be in a marriage, even that's not so ay, than being single, even though she's living in the ivory tower. That nature will never change as long as blood is flowing through her veins. It doesn't matter if it's in the 10th century or in the 21st century. That's the way it is, and it's never going to change. So if Chazal tell us that a mokem mechusa, that's megula, it causes hirur, so that's never going to change. What's going to change? If we're going to say that there's little hears that some communities are makpid and they say you must uncover it and you must uncover it, and the others say it doesn't matter, even if it's uncovered, it's kosher. So then we say it's totally in the place where it's mutter because they're rogil. It's not just because they're rogil, because it's mutter, so they're rogil. So there's no hirur because there's no yetzahara here, because in this place it's mutter, and the place where the minig Yisrael is to say no, that she has to cover every drop of the hair, even tzamtzon, whatever tzamtzon is. So therefore, it's osur. So therefore, when she exposes it, it's ma'im genuvim. It's all because it's ba'aveda, so it'll cause a hirur, and therefore it turns into ervah. The shaila is where's the chicken and where's the egg? Is it, the ervah brings hirur, or hirur makes it ervah? I think hirur makes it ervah. Whenever Chazal say that this is going to cause hirur, that he might think about this will cause him to have bad thoughts. So the pshat is, so that I think that's therefore I think I understand very much the Mishnah Berurah's Taina, that to say that there's a difference, but when you say there's a difference of married or unmarried woman, or even a married woman, there's a difference in the place where they say it's permissible to uncover these or not. But regularly here of a married woman, which minatoida is supposed to be covered, minatoida is supposed to be covered. So you're going to tell me everyone in America has it uncovered. So what? Everyone in America, the women, the shoik is begilui. Now, what's shoik? We'll see soon in the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe holds that the shoik is the lower part of the leg. Taki, the Mishnah Berurah has a kula, and he touched that the shoik means the higher part of the goof. And so even according to Mishnah Berurah, today in America, a lot of women, even the higher chelik of the regel, the megala, and so you're gonna say, therefore there's like a hirud. Person gonna say, I live in the bitch. I'm never maharid. So the answer is he's a liar. He does. You're the Torah the Seif Daita Shaloda. The Torah knows this guy is so unsensitive. He doesn't know if he's being maharid or not maharid. He doesn't know. Chachamim are telling us that that this thing has to do with hirur, and therefore it turns into erva. The Alter Rebbe has no opinion about this. Oh, shoik. He holds the shoik is the lower part.
The question is, why was it that I see that without Shulman, where we say skirts down to the knee?
No way. No way. No, you never seen such a thing.
Down to the ankle.
No, they wear skirts down to the knee and they wear tights.
Okay, but the tights which looks like look just like the followers of the limbs.
That's its optical illusion because the color of the tights, the color of the skin. That's why.
That's like having that you can see through.
Who are you fooling? What do you mean? It's
What do you mean? If he's to the shul, then you can see through. So somebody technically is somebody in the middle.
Okay, that's a good question. We'll put it aside right now.
I mean, now we were shaken by coke, by behavior.
Right. So summarizing, we have a machloikis. I would say lemaisa. It depends on how you learn. This lawyer of Ervah's D'var. The Alter Rebbe says in Sivan Ayin Dalat Sifei that this is din deiraisa. So if it's a din deiraisa and you have a machloikis, the Aruch HaShulchan from the Mishnah Berurah, and you don't know if the halacha is like the Aruch HaShulchan or the Mishnah Berurah, you probably have to pass in lechumra like the Mishnah Berurah. The Alter Rebbe does not have an opinion. The Bochrel that asked me this question said that his Rebbe told him that the Alter Rebbe holds lechumra. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say anything about it, but that's not true because we know a klal, the Alter Rebbe only, similar to the Rambam, the Alter Rebbe only quotes things from the poskim before him that they mention. And even if he had an opinion about an issue, but if the poskim before him did not talk about it, he did not mention it in the Shulchan Aruch. At most, he'll mention it in the Kutasachim, but not in the Shulchan Aruch. You have to know every posik when you're learning a certain posik. What was his methodology in the sefer? So even though the Alter Rebbe is doesn't mention such a kula. So unless someone tells you this kula, the default position is l'chumra. But still, you can't go around and say that the Alter Rebbe holds l'chumra. You're saying the Alter Rebbe doesn't have an opinion in it. But l'maisa, if you asked me between the Aruch HaShulchan and the Mishnah Berurah, I don't know who's right. I can't say. So if since lawyer Ervah be'ervah's D'var is as din deiraisa, so you have to be machmir. Okay, let's rule this. This is for Krishma every called D'var Shebekedusha. Now let's talk about another thing.
The question was
No. A city, a country. Yeah.
The question is, the woman was Ervah, and he wants to say Krishma. Can he turn his back to her?
Oh, this is exactly what we're going to talk right now. The Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, Siman Ayin Hey, Tefach Megula B'Isha B'Makom Shedarka L'Chatzis Ervah. Any part of the woman's body in that country, if the derech is to cover that part of the body, if it's exposed one tefach, it's an erva. Afila yishta b'nei shemevi l'dei hiru k'shemistakel boy.
Depends on the kind of the derech of practice. Even if scholars, the derech became pixels. Is the derech?
No, because wait till the end of the sif. Afila yishta b'nei shemevi l'hiru k'shemistakel boy. V'lachein also likra l'spal kenegdei. So, Kemoy Keneged Ervah Mamish, just like any Ervah, real Ervah. He has to turn himself completely because the lawyer your machana is where your face is. So until you turn, closing your eyes is not going to help. Yesh matirim. There are those that are matir if he's not being mistakel. I feel it. If he's not being mistakel, it's fine. It's not really an erva. It's only because it's a hirur, and the hirur will make it an erva. So since it's not being mistakel, only the be'alma. So therefore, closes his eyes. So then it's not so then there's no hirur. So then there's no erva. So it's not like it's machanech kodesh. It's not like it's it doesn't have a din of erva altogether.
Who's saying that?
This is the second opinion. So machlokes rishonim. Vein tzarech lahachzer ponis. The Alter Rebbe says v'yishlismach al divrem k'shiyef shebin yacha. Before we go to the halacha, it's funny because the Mishnah Berurah thinks that the second opinion is right, and the Alter Rebbe is more in the Chutzach. I think the first. The Alter Rebbe is more lekula. Mishnah Berurah here is more lechumra. But let me explain. The Mishnah Berurah says, I don't understand. I don't understand too much the second opinion. He says the second opinion says that it's only the first opinion says that when is there erva? Only if a person is being mistakel. If it's a riyah be'alma, it's not a problem. The second opinion says no, it's only a erva if he's being mistakel. So the Mishnah Berurah says that mistakel means he's looking, he's steering, So the Mishnah Berurah says, I don't understand. If he's being mistakel, you're not allowed to look at any even etzba, even any part of the woman, even the part that's allowed to be exposed. The Chazal say mistakel ve'etzba ktana shelitzha kilu mistakel b'mokem aturfa. If he looks at a finger of a woman in a way of istaklus, in other words, in a objectifying way. So if he's looking at a woman and he objectifies the woman, so even if it's etzba ketana, it's mitstakel b'mokem turf. It's a terrible aveda. Lo yanoke b'dina shel gehinna. So what does it mean, lagabi? What are you telling me? It's lagabi krishma. Obviously, this din of lo yaro b'chayeves dosar is even without being mistakel. Ri'iyah be'alma, because if you're being mistakel, that's terrible. That's anyway awesome, and nothing to do with mokem begula. Etz baktan is even mokem begula. So the Alter Rebbe says no, fakir, because we're talking about his wife. We're talking about his wife. And therefore, he's allowed to be mistakel. He's allowed to look at the beauty of his wife. He's allowed to objectify his wife. Elamai, when it comes to Krishma, and the Alter Rebbe says fakir. The Gemara is mashma more like the first opinion. Why? Because the Gemara, if you look in the Gemara said, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak in the top line, Tefach bisha Ervah. The Gemara says lamai. Ilay melistakula bei. If you the shaylas is staklos, Amar Rabbi Sheishes, lama mana kos tachshita v'chut tachshita v'fnim, lama lachkol mistakel be'etzbek tana isha kilo mistakel u'makam atoyref. Why didn't the Gemara answer? What do you mean? What's your question? There is the staklos, but over here is b'riyah be'alma. That's not what the Gemara answered. The Gemara says ela be'ishter l'krishma. Because we taught so Shmami know that the isur of a krishma is not b'riyah be'alma, only if he's being mistakel. This is a very important machloikis, because this machloikis will determine if you're sitting in a bus or in the subway, or if you're walking Avenue J, or anywhere today in America, especially in the summer, where women are walking in a way that Sar b'isha Ervah and Shoik b'isha Ervah and Shoik according to the Alter Rebbe and Shoik and maybe even the Mokem Turf is it's not everything is Magul. Okay. So now, if you hold obviously like the Mishnah Berurah says that even here Ba'alma, it says you're not allowed to be mistakel be'etzba ktana shalisha lo yisasur acher al bafam acher einechem, and it's a serious thing. But here Ba'alma, this mutzah, he's allowed to walk in the train station to look where he's going. However, b'tzad musar, the person should be very careful. B'tzad din. The issue of being mistakel is only if you're objectifying the woman. If you're not objectifying the woman, you're allowed to deal with women. You're allowed to. So the D'var is about a D'var Shebekedusha. The D'var is a D'var Shebekedusha. So if you say, like the first opinion, that the Riyah of Alma is mutter, kolchken, if you close your eyes, Or kolshken if you're like you're busy, you're in a sefer. So then, but if you hold like the second opinion l'chumra, that the iya be'alma is also if there's an Erev exposed, so then it's not going to help to close your eyes even because it has v'hoya machanecha kodesh. You have to turn. You have to turn. Where are you going to turn to in the subway?
Not always.
Where are you going to turn? Where exactly are you going to turn?
Where, huh?
And the doors.
Where exactly are you going to turn? There's nowhere to turn.
You turn.
The Meister, the Alter Rebbe says, even though in the Kusachen Alter Rebbe holds that Medina the Gemara it sounds more lakula, but because a lot of places come macher, the bottom line the Alter Rebbe says that if you can't do, what do you mean you can't do something else? Because what else are you going to do on the train? What else are you going to do on the bus? What are you going to do when you walk in the street? You're not going to learn Torah. So when are you going to learn Torah? You're going to waste your time. But what's if a person wants to speak it? It's a b'maitzayim b'peh.
So you can't do it.
So I'm saying the Alter Rebbe holds noita lakula, and therefore he says means that if you can't turn, I think what he means, if you could turn, so turn. But if you can't turn, so then we rely on the Rishonim that hold that even lagabe krishma D'var Shebekedusha, the Yisur was only staklos. You're never allowed to be mistakel. Yes, so lagabe other woman you're never allowed to be mistakel. It's taka true. It's lagabe your own wife. That your wife, you're allowed to be mistakel. B'shas krishma, you're not allowed to look on your wife in an objectifying way, or even if you're not looking in an objectifying way, if she has exposed her hair or her shoik or a tefach from her goof, which is supposed to be mechusa, so you can rely on that opinion. So then you close your eyes. That's it. So that's what the Alter Rebbe holds. Right. So that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. So it's funny. It's funny in this thing. Taka, the Mishnah Brura is noite. The Mishnah Brura is noite lechumra. The Mishnah Brura, in his mind, what do you mean? This whole thing of Ervah's D'var, what do you mean? Stakel? You're never allowed to be mistakel on a woman. That's a surah the Ervah's D'var means you're not allowed to have even an iya. So according to the Mishnah Brura, if you're sitting on the train, you're sitting on the bus, you walk in the streets, staki can be mahara divrei Torah, but you can't read Krishma, and you can't say. So, but according to the Alter Rebbe is noit lakula. The Alter Rebbe is noit lakula.
He said a word for himself.
Yeah. So therefore, he should close his eyes, or not looking.
Think of something else.
Right.
Your kavanah in David. Here sounds like if you don't have any kavanah, the stuckness of the album, it could be a problem. But what would be really concentrating on what you're doing? If that help in any situation.
Sure, that would be like closing his eyes. He's not seeing. It's not even bavoda be'alma. If he's not seeing, if he's not even seeing. Okay, I mean, every person has to know themselves if they're seeing or they're not seeing.
Once there's something you just, we have a shine with, Crystal, wanted to, like, screens with sports car. Like, not to know about it, but I asked them, they were basically, they didn't very advertising. They made it, somebody, instead of advertising, they had a lot of considered, like, big commentaries, people talking about in sports, in between. Yeah? So those people, and for example, ladies also, that's something that they're in. So that's the world, right? If they look like normal people you can see in the streets, not a problem. If they are provocative, that's really a problem that they shouldn't do.
Yeah, but this is different because you were talking. I know, yeah, exactly. Because that's not live. That's not. That's a little bit of a judgment call because that's Indian of Hirur because it's not true people. It's just on the screen. So that's not mamish the din that we're dealing with. The din of Shulchan Aruch, and I hear it makes sense. It makes sense.
Cautious sports ball that falls from me.
Oh yeah.
Very.
Yeah, you know what? Since we're reading, I just want to read it till the end very, very fast. Skip this bracket. I'm in Shulchan Aruch Harav. You see the last piece? So it's the 6 lines from the top. The last 2 words. I'm sorry, Pnei B'Yadea Shedarkim Lisum Ugolim. Mutalik is connected. Kimi Shirogel Bam Ben Bel Dehirur. Aber connected Shoyka also. Afa Pish Shoyka Ene Moka Mutzna Beish. Shedarke Lias Megula B'Mekem Sholchim Balan Pilos. Even Shemoka Mutzna Beish Ervah. V'yeshem Shafil Pacht Mitefach Megula B'Shoyka Ervah. Afil Beishtay. But from these words in the Alter Rebbe, we see that the Alter Rebbe holds that shoik is the lower part of the leg, not like the Mishnah Berurah who's makel to say that the shoik could be the higher part of the leg. No, because he's talking. Because what do you mean on pilos? Socks don't go on the higher part of the leg. Socks obviously on the lower part. Right.
But in other words, that Mason is not like that.
Yeah, the place.
Seems like that.
Right. It was Emes. But we have to know what the Yiddish women do. I probably it's not clear what the goyim are doing. The Hirur makes it Ervah, not the other way around. Because the Peneh Shalamata is a real Ervah. But the other parts on her goof is only become an erva through hirur. But by a woman looking at a woman, there's no hirur. So therefore, if a woman is looking at another woman, the only thing that's not allowed to be exposed is the real erva. Shenkin by man, the hirur makes it an erva. Yeah. The woman could see the other woman naked, but the only thing she's not and say krishma. The only thing she's not allowed to see naked is the real erva. Because according to this opinion, erva and besides that part, which is really erva, the hirur makes it erva, and because a normal woman looking at another woman is not going to be maharer, so it's not going to become an erva. The Alter Rebbe holds hikikisvar rishoina. If the levush is very thin and you could see the basa through it, so then it's like a glass. It's talking what you were saying. If you could see the flesh through the clothing, the clothing is very sheer. You can see through it. See through. Ervah neshmei the heater was liquid such spark connected there is bar feel ishte. Aber besul shedar kan leilig prus rosh we khsar shnosh shregilos lotzes khutz latzamsam miktes aratzes mutter fikre connected kim shrogel behem bei me will the heater. Und they nachris a feel dark like a soisa, like there's some communities they wear a pay nachris and their mechasset still with a hat. Mutter liquid is connected. Like a mutter legaloisa, the emish from yoitza, but Rosh Peru, Shos Manatoida, Beishish. Even though, yeah, this is the Alter Rebbe. So I'm saying from the Alter Rebbe, you don't see one way or the other way between the Aruch HaShulchan and the Mishnah Berurah. You can't tell me that it's a little mashma l'chumra, but no one brought it up in the poskim before the Alter Rebbe, and therefore the Alter Rebbe didn't say it was a megalas das. Okay, so let's summarize 2 things. Number one, here. So if it's a Goyish woman, it's mutter for them to have their hair exposed, so it's not an erva. If it's a Jewish woman and she's married, so then it's a machloikis Aruch HaShulchan and Mishnah Berurah. The Aruch HaShulchan says that there ain't no shimkop, it's like a shoik. And the Aruch HaShulchan says, well, people are not going to be aroused by it because everyone has their hair uncovered. I'm not talking about today in New York, which Baruch Hashem, the derech of Bnei Yisrael is yet to cover their hair. I'm talking about in a place where Lamazang the derech is not to cover their hair. So this is the machloikis. So again, we said that to justify and to understand the Mishnah Berurah is that you're the Torah the Torah is going to tell you when you're bahar or not. You tell me you live on the beach and you're never being maharid. Like the Gemara says about Shmuel, that he would take the kala, put it on his shoulders, and dance with the kala. So they said this is not appropriate. He said Kaki
Shmuel,
Chibra.
Shmuel.
Yeah, no, Shmuel in the Gemara.
Amar.
Avu the Shmuel.
Amar.
Yeah, the Amoida. So they said it's not appropriate. He said it's Kaki Chibri. For me, they're white ducks. It doesn't. It doesn't arouse me. So yeah. So exactly. So a person exactly. If his name is not Avu the Shmuel, and he tells you that, you could send him a base of Mishagoyim. Either he's a liar or he's a Meshugana. So either he has Nebuch, a very big problem, or he's lying to himself. But so therefore, the Torah tells us. So again, that's why it's totally, if it's also, I think Mishnah Berurah has a very strong point. When the Rishonim said that it's a difference if she is an Asura or non-Asura, or if it's a derech, those little hairs to cover or not to cover, it's because if it's mutter, so then there's no ma'im gnuvim tok. It's not going to cause the heater that's going to make it a erv. And the bottom line is, in this machlokes, it's since Aisa Deraisa, I think you have to go like the Mishnah Berurah. The other thing is, which is very negeya today in the summer in the United States of America, all over the Western world, is a D'var Shebekedusha. Istaklus in an objectifying way is also anyway. It's nothing to do. That's even upon him, even bad spektana. But we're talking about not to objectify. Stam, you're dealing with people, so it's nothing to do. It's an the alma. It's not also. That's not what the problem is. Sometimes people. It's midas chassidus. You can't confuse midas chassidus with the din. It is nothing that doesn't say anywhere in Torah that a Jew is not allowed to deal with women, and if in a non-objectifying way. Elamai, when it's a D'var Shebekedusha, so that's the shaila. Is the isur looking only in a way of istaklus? But if it's an iya b'alma kolshkin, if you're closing your eyes, it's mutter, or even an iya b'alma, and therefore you have to move away. And the Alter Rebbe says that if you can't move away, you can be mekel, which I think is a very good thing today, because if you're going in the train, you're going in a bus, and you're even walking in the street, you're driving in a car, and EF Shabin so then as long as you're being oitzim einov, it's good enough. I want to quickly finish.
Very quick. Say the words also.
Yeah, say the words.
Even if there's a
Yeah.
word
Yeah, as long as he's oitzim einov.
that's
So two things. One is that Mishnah Berurah says about the hair that goes out chutz letzamtzam, that it's muter min adin. He says, however, bezoyer pashas nosoi hechmer me'oid shelo yisro shum seir meisha. The garma miskenusa leveisa. The garma lebenod de lo yiskashva bedora. The sitter achre lishres bebeisa. The kolchkin mechel b'shukakach im came boy itis afila kodes beisa lo yechmul sara chadam ereishin. So that's why the Lubavitcher Rebbe Zechat Tzaddik Uvrocha was very into shaitels, because the Rebbe said that the Metzia shows that when a woman wears a tichel, the tichel could move and slip, and it doesn't look ugly, because that's a faket. It looks pretty when the shaitel moves a little bit here and there, and the ksas of the sides are exposed. And all of a sudden, you fall into the shaila: is that tzamtzon or not tzamtzon, or what's tzamtzon or what's not tzamtzon? Whatever it is, we don't know. We have shalat tzamtzon, what tzamtzon is. So therefore, it's a shaila of Yisra Shal Torah. So exactly. So the Rebbe, why the Rebbe like shaitels is because a woman that's wearing a shaitel is never going to expose a little bit of her real hair, because it's ugly, ugly. And that the Rebbe was very against. The called false. But if it's a real shaitel, the derech of the Yorda Torah l'sevdaita shalodam, Yorda Lubavitcher Rebbe l'sevdaita, that the women are not going to, unless it's a fall, that's not a shaitel. But if it's a shaitel, they're not going to expose it. What's so terrible, a little bit of the hair to be exposed? So that there's a Tzemach Tzedek in the first Maimer in Torah, or he says this week's Parsha Nazir is the best thing, is to have long hair. And a woman, Sarbi Ervah, exposing her hair is the worst thing. Why? Because the Inyan of Nazir is a gewaltig and big kedusha. So the hair is a chayis mitzumtzum, it's a positive thing. Because through the hair of the Nazir, kedusha can come into the world. But by a woman, which is the Inyan of Malchus, you're this modest, that the Inyan of a woman is the Inyan of Tzimtzum. So a Tzimtzum on top of a Tzimtzum is so, the kedusha is so fractured, the fakir, to hear the klippas, could get a hold of the chayis of kedusha, and therefore a Jewish woman that even exposes one of her ears, it gives a koyach to the Sitra Achre to get a chayis from Kedusha, and that's what they're looking for. And therefore, Api Kabbalah, it's a very big Indian. Okay, today at the last Shaila, let's say for next week, I just want to finish with this: that today is the last day of Shavuos. So it's Shloma. Anyone that didn't eat enough blintzes, if you didn't have enough cheesecake, run over right now to Ostrovitsky or
cheesecake.
oh yeah, okay, fine. So you don't have to run anywhere. Today you can be mashlim, the Eibush shall help them, that it Hashem, that we should feel the Mesikus HaTorah, and we should feel it, we should have a gesunte Summe.
Anybody wants in?
One sec.
I'm going to tell you yesterday.
Here. One second. Okay, Rabbi say thank you very much for joining. Elam, where are you?
In Israel.
Oh, wow. What's going on in Israel?
Yeah, it's a bit noisy.